Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell in your afternoon drive. Dom Amore covers UConn sports, has a Hall of Fame vote for Major League Baseball, long time. One of the best sports writers around with the Hartford Courant, and he joins us now on Bobby V's hotline. And Dom, how are you, sir?
Dom.
Hey, what's up, Rob? How are you?
I'm great. So it's just so enjoyable, whether you're a Yankee fan or not, if you're just like a baseball historian, to see things like Babe Ruth hit 50 home runs 4 times during a in his career, 50 or more home runs in his career. I'm just your thoughts, kind of school our listeners on the greatness in the era where Babe Ruth played and the greatness right now of what Aaron Judge is doing in front of us in 2024.
Yeah, well, the number that really jumps out at me is if you look at Aaron Judge's 162-game average, it's 51 or 52 home runs. That's his average for 162 games over his whole career. And, he's missed 250 or so games due to injuries or the pandemic. So you wonder, boy, he'd have close to 400 home runs already at age 32 if he played 150 games a year, 155 games a year. So that's one thing that jumps out. And, one thing to keep in mind about Ruth was that he was a full-time pitcher his first 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
So if you compare the two, he averaged about 46 home runs over his career for 162 games, but he did average over 50 with the Yankees from 1920 to 1934. But it just goes to show you that really, when you start talking about home run proficiency, it's basically those two guys, because even Barry Bonds and even the other players who had some help that we know about haven't really matched the kind of numbers that Judge has put up, consistently over an 8-year period. I mean, if he didn't get hurt last year, we'd be looking at 3 straight 50 home run seasons.
One reason I'm a Griffey Jr. fan, another reason why I'm a big Sammy fan, and another reason why I'm an Aaron Judge fan is because all these guys are phenomenal on defense, especially Griffey and Judge. Like the way they've been able to bring back home runs and get wins for their team on defense. Does that hit your equation at all when you're factoring the greatest of all time?
It certainly does. And, Judge is a guy that I continually think of as a guy who should be in right field, because he looks more like a right fielder.
Right.
He looks like a Dave Winfield. He's got the right fielder's arm. I sometimes feel like he looks like a fish out of water in center field. But, he's willing to do that because that's where the Yankees need him. And he does a good job out there. I mean, I can't think of a game where he missed a ball or blew a ball and hurt it, cost him a game. And you have games like last night where he won, really helped win a game or keep them in a game as a result of a great catch out there. He has that capability, like Dave Winfield, to take home runs out of the stands. So, yeah, I mean, that should factor in, too. And, again, his willingness to move, which not a lot of guys would do, to me, is another thing that should be highly regarded.
Yeah, and he's not just a slugger to me. I mean, yes, he does strike out a lot, but the 51 homers, 122 RBI, but he's got a 465 on base. He's looking at a triple crown. He's like, I think he's about 16 points behind Bobby Witt Jr. He's gotten better. I mean, he's gotten better since his MVP year. He's got better numbers than his MVP year. When you look at this guy's progression and you look at the lack of, if Juan Soto wasn't around him, he'd be an island. I mean, Stanton is helping right now, and yes, Gleyber Torres and Verdugo and Volpe got some hits last night. Big deal. They haven't been doing it all year. It's been essentially Aaron Judge and Juan Soto versus Major League Baseball. They're 2 of the 7 guys or even 6 guys hitting 300 across the entire game. So I mean, the reason why I brought up Babe Ruth, we were just watching the old timers game, and they're walking guys out and stuff like that. Explain to people like Joe DiMaggio's ego, and he had to be introduced as the greatest living Yankee. I mean, where is some of his lore going right now? If he can continue this for about another 7 years, where will you stack Aaron Judge up there against some of the greatest of all time in Yankee history?
Well, people seem to, people talk about Judge the way they talked about Mickey Mantle. And I think I would certainly put him as the natural next to that Ruth Gehrig DiMaggio Mantle line. Derek Jeter was not the same kind of player. He wasn't a slugger. Yogi Berra was a catcher, didn't play necessarily as many games or have as many home runs as those guys did. But a lot of people feel like it could someday be when you look at monuments, it could someday be Ruth Gehrig, DiMaggio Mantle, Aaron Judge. And he could supplant some of those guys. And you mentioned Joe DiMaggio's ego. Late in his career, when he clearly could not cover center field anymore, and he was asked to give first base a shot, and he threw a tantrum and didn't do it. And he finished his career in center field, even though the Yankees had so much more talent than anybody else that they could live with it. But he's a guy that was not really willing to move not only out of position, but even out of his spot in the batting order. They put him fifth one night and he threw a tantrum. They put Johnny Mize fourth. So you should appreciate how much better, just how much of a team player Aaron Judge is. And I think a lot of things, you look at the Yankee roster, there are a few guys in there who maybe had reputations for being kind of selfish or being kind of me, look at me guys. And I think Aaron Judge really puts a stop to a lot of that. I think he has a lot of clout in that clubhouse, and people fall in line and to do things the way the Yankees want them done because of him.
We love Aaron Judge. He is having an incredible season. Even if he hits 63 home runs, though, Dom, I've seen that. One thing I've never seen is a 50-50 season. 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases, and Shohei is very close to complete that task this month of September. Won't that overshadow everything in Major League Baseball, especially how this guy's year started?
Well, of course, if he were still pitching and he went 50-50, that would be something. But I don't know. I mean, there's no question of what Ohtani's doing is historic. Even as a DH, no question of what a valuable player he is. He certainly will be the National League MVP. But we're on the East Coast and we watch Aaron Judge every night. So I guess we're probably apt to think of him first. But you couldn't go wrong with either one of those guys. And don't forget, if Judge weren't around, we'd be still raving about what Soto's done, because
right.
I cannot remember. I was talking to one of the Yankees. I was at the Yankee Stadium last week for do some yard goat stuff with the Rockies, and I was talking to some of the people around the Yankees, and I can't remember the Yankees picking up a guy the magnitude of a Soto who did not have an adjustment period and a slow start and need time to get acclimated to New York and the pressure of the Yankees. He came in from day one, swinging like better than he ever has. So. Let's not discount what a tremendous year he's had.
As far as some of the other things going on in baseball, I mean, you got Henderson from the Orioles is unbelievable. You've got Bobby Wood Jr. is unbelievable. There's just so many good things going on around Major League Baseball right now. But the Juan Soto topic came up today, where he might land, and everybody's saying New York or New York. Mets or the Yankees. Is that where you kind of see this shaking out right now, that Cohen is going to try to get Soto to go across town and play for the New York Mets?
It could be. He stayed out of the Aaron Judge sweepstakes, and a lot of people thought that might have been out of respect to the Yankees, who didn't try to block him from buying the Mets, or who supported him in buying the Mets. So maybe he says, okay, I stayed out of the Aaron Judge stuff, but I'm gonna make a run at Juan Soto. That could happen. But the one thing that I would ask about that or anything else, how many superstar players become free agents and walk away from the Yankees? I mean, in other places, once players become free agents, they're gone. They leave. They don't sign back with their team. With the Yankees, it's the opposite. Most guys like Aaron Judge a couple of years ago become free agents. They go back and sign with the Yankees. I mean, Robinson Cano was probably one of the few that walked away, and I think the Yankees strategically finished second in that bidding. And made the right decision. But you understand what I'm saying. People don't generally walk away from the Yankees. I think I said this last time I was on. The Yankees aren't shy about writing checks. If he follows this through and they go ahead and win the championship or get close to it, and he keeps doing what he's doing, and Aaron Judge doesn't express any objection to somebody making more than he's making, because he understands that Soto's age is a factor. I don't see him walking away from the Yankees.
Well, Dom, let's talk a little football here before we start on Saturday. 5 days away for UConn taking on Maryland, and now we know a quarterback. Not Cole Welliver, the freshman from Texas, not the redshirt freshman Tucker McDonald, not Joe Fagnano. It's going to be Nick Evers, the transfer from Wisconsin. What went into this decision for Coach Mora, and how well do you think Nick Evers will do here in the first couple of weeks against some of these ACC teams?
Well, of course, he's a complete X factor because he's really never played in college. I mean, he was a very highly regarded player out of Dallas area, the high schools. He was recruited and signed with Florida. Then they changed coaches. He moved to Oklahoma, and then he moved to Wisconsin. So he's a guy that has been considered a big-time prospect. Now he's at UConn and finally going to get an opportunity to play. And, UConn, I think, made sure he got a big chunk of NIL money to get him here. So, you don't do that if your guy's going to be a backup. So I feel like it was inevitable the day he arrived that he was going to be the starter, at least until he played his way out of it. But he obviously is a world-class athlete at that position, great runner, great legs, and a rocket arm. And it all comes down to, can he play fast? Can he slow the game down at this level when he gets out there for the first time in a couple of years, and really the first time ever at this level? So we don't know what he's going to be like. We know he has the raw tools, and I think UConn is very wise to make the investment in him and see what he looks like. But we're not going to know until we see him out there. And certainly there's a lot going on around UConn athletics right now, as you know. And this is a pretty good time for UConn football to show that it's making some strides. And, and it's a low bar to clear, but maybe Nick Evers could be the best quarterback we've seen at UConn since Dan Orlovsky.
There you go. All right, so let's bring up the Big 12 for a second. NIL, recruiting, very difficult right now in 2024. How big would it be for UConn to get into the Big 12?
Well, I think whether it's the Big 12 or whether teams leave the ACC and then UConn goes to the ACC, I think it's really critical for UConn's long-term health. Because in addition to the changes that we've seen, there's more coming because of the settlement, the revenue-sharing settlement that's been in place. Colleges are going to be throwing a lot of money at recruits, in NIL and other funds, revenue sharing. There are going to be a lot more scholarships that they're going to be able to offer, which UConn is not going to be able to do right now because for various reasons, and mostly the budget. And we know that UConn is in a position where they're spending a lot more than they're taking in. I mean, they're improving in that area, but they're spending a lot more than they're taking in now. And to be competitive at the level that they've been, and to keep winning championships in basketball, it's going to take a lot more money. So, this is not trying to save football at the expense of basketball. This is trying to save everybody, So I think it would be very big. Now, the deal or the proposal that's been reported that's out there, where they'd have to wait 7 years for football to get in, they'd have to wait a number of years to really reap that full financial benefit. They would have to sink a lot more money into football before it got in, maybe build a new stadium on campus, which I don't know how or how that's going to take place or how much money it would cost or who's going to do it. But so whether this is actually the best deal, that remains to be seen. We'll see what it looks like when something concrete is out there. But I do think that for the long term, UConn has got to get into a major conference and get more revenue for their buck. Otherwise, never mind football, the basketball is going to have a hard time. Dan Hurley certainly made mention of that when he entertained the Lakers offer. Will UConn have the resources to continue to compete at the level they are? So it's very important, and UConn has to go all the way down the trail with this as far as it goes, and see if it comes out their way.
Now, that 7-year situation, I'm reading that as well as you speak. The 2031 season will be the first for UConn to play football in the Big 12. Is that a football-only thing, and does that have anything to do with the $15 million exit and the 27-month notice that the Big East requires?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with the other, because if UConn were getting its full revenue right away,
right? Who cares?
They would be able to pay that off easily.
Right.
I just think it's the idea that a lot of Big 12 schools just don't want to take UConn football into the league.
Right.
And they want to give UConn, if they're going to do it, UConn would have to make several upgrades, a lot of upgrades to the program, maybe build a new stadium, and that would take 6 or 7 years. So I think that's what it has to do with. But the information kind of comes out in drips and drabs here. But that would seem to be it. And again, I'm not sure. I mean, first of all, I'll be retired in 2031. So I'll never cover a UConn game in the Big 12 if that's what it is. So selfishly, I hope that they could bridge that gap a little bit.
Dom, we love you, brother. Thank you so much.
Never leave us.
Dwight Evans was amazing. So
you would love
you would love the interview we just did with him.
And a guy who should be in the Hall of Fame, too. A lot of guys from that era, Dick Allen, Frank Howard, Rocky Colavito, Willie Horton, Boog Powell, guys who hit well over 300 home runs and have a lot of other hardware to go with it, MVPs, Gold Gloves, in some cases World Series rings. A lot of sluggers from that pitcher-dominated era got a short shrift in the Hall of Fame voting, and they deserve a second look. I mean, when you start and so rather than look at some of the analytics and putting guys in retroactively, I'd like to see more these committees look at some of those sluggers from the 60s, 70s, and 80s who didn't get a fair enough look.
Let me ask you real quick, that outfield, Jim Rice, Fred Lynn, Dwight Evans, one of the greatest of all time?
Well, certainly the Red Sox are known for having great outfields. They had a great one in the 19 teens. I won't throw the names out there because except for Tris Speaker, you won't know who they are. But it was a great outfield. And offensively, defensively, Fred Lynn, tremendously underrated player. A lot of people have forgotten what a terrific, terrific player he was. And I know somebody rooting for the Yankees, those guys scared the hell out of me. I mean, Rice scared me every time he came up. Lynn scared me every time he came up. And Dwight Evans threw out a runner at third or home every time the Yankees played the Red Sox in those days. So, as somebody who watched them while following the other side, because that's what I was as a kid, it was a hell of an outfield.
There you go. Dom Amore, everybody from the Hartford Courant. Check out his online stuff. We appreciate you, Dom, as much as anybody we have on this show. Thank you, Dom.
Thanks, Dom.
Great. Hey, you guys, you got it. Thanks, guys.
Dom Amore, we'll do First Dibs question of the day next. It's Rob Dibble Show here with Ben Darnell in your afternoon drive. Kurt Kaplan on the ones and twos, Nick Federico on the video.